Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to warn you, Jenny and I, this is not a usual episode for us. So this is, I guess this is, I'm going to throw it back to like an 80s reference, Jenny. Now, this is way before your time. So in the US, we used to have after school specials.
Mhm.
And if you were watching shows like Family Ties and Growing Pains in the 80s and 90s, when they announced that it was going to be a very special episode, it was one of those episodes where you had to pay attention because you were going to learn a lesson. Today, we have a special edition, a very special episode of Midwich on Air,
Yep.
which is kind of out of our norm, but you know what? It's something that we wanted to bring to the table and do something different. Because why? Because we don't have a script. That's the beauty of what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Neto. I'm the head of emerging markets at Midwich US. This is Jenny. She is the actual host of Midwich on Air. She is our technical director, and she is going to lead our very special episode today. And I get to sit and throw some color commentary.
Oh, you'll get attacked a little bit as well, actually, because
I'll get attacked, of course.
yeah, you live in the wrong place for this episode. So I think we did
All right. All
we
right,
did a
let's
bit on
go.
sustainability maybe a couple of years back or so,
Mhm.
and things have moved on quite a lot since then, and I think they've moved on really rapidly for us in Europe, and maybe not quite at the same pace for North America.
Okay.
But it is a special edition. When you just said that about like TV and sitcoms, the special episode in my head always makes me think of like the musical episodes that they do. So I just want to be really clear
break out into dance.
that's not what this is. We're not doing a musical episode. We are instead very much covering a lesson, I guess. Or not a lesson. It's an awareness campaign. So this episode is going to look specifically at how to be sustainable in your digital signage, which actually makes pulling the content together so much simpler, because the topic is so broad and it can be really difficult to know where to start with sustainability as a whole. So it's quite exciting to be able to say, let's just look at one technology application and technology type and see what we can offer in terms of some guidance and hopefully some things that you haven't heard before around that topic. For this, we wanted to make sure that we had some expert voices. And we took advantage of ISE and our wonderful podcast studio. And so we managed to, we did a little research first, and we decided that really the best current example of all-round sustainability for us had to be awarded to Sharp. And there's reasons for that, and I'll come on to it. So as a result, we invited Sharp, and Martin from Sharp joined us on the podcast. And we also requested the help of an independent consultant. So Laila and Jensen of Zenova works both with end users for their digital signage products, but also projects, but also across all the different channel partner points in terms of their strategies around digital signage, be that selling it, installing it, the content element, etc. So we are going to play that interview for you very shortly. But I wanted to start with a bit of a checklist, I guess. And so these are things that in prepping for this Midwich on Air that I have found and think are particularly relevant and worth a mention, I guess. So let's start. Hang on, let me get my list. Okay, there's a few ways to select product here, and it sometimes one can cancel out the other, and I think that's something interesting to note. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, a lot of companies do this very well or have made significant improvements here, and that's packaging. So packaging is something that everybody can do in terms of how sustainable their product is and lowering the overall carbon footprint. Actually, that though packaging does fall into the category of, for me, a bit operational carbon footprint as well. So if you know the product that you're buying is not likely to be easily recycled, it's not possible for it to include any previously used materials in the design, etc., then if you run out of ways to make the product that you need for your use case sustainable, you can look to the company. And in Europe, this is really easy to do because a lot of us now, once we reach a certain size, are mandated to report on our carbon footprint and science-based targets that we can be measured against moving forward. So you get to see in the UK and in EU countries, a business's operational carbon footprint and their commitment and targets that they're setting themselves to achieve against over the coming years. And that normally includes a pledge towards a net zero point. And be careful with net zero. Net zero is in fact a circa 95% reduction as such. So you from where you were many years ago, actually. So it's not, you are not entirely carbon neutral. It's about an improvement. And then the other thing to consider is that most people will add a little small print in their net zero commitment. Midwich do this too. So we have a year that we are committed to be net zero in our controllable emissions. So the things that we're physically paying for and physically using and in complete control of. But then we have a later date that we hope to be able to bring forward. But we've pledged to get there regardless. And that's for our entire emissions. So that includes what people call here the scope 3 emissions. So your indirect emissions, what the companies that you buy from are doing, for example, will form part of that calculation. So it's less easy to quickly control. Then, of course, in the product world, we have products that use post-consumer materials, so materials that have come from something else in their build. This is great. Do you know what's also great? Products that can be recycled. So Sharp are a fantastic example here. 97% of what makes up their display screens can be recycled. Sometimes the two don't go together. So be really careful if you are looking at marketing and you're being told that perhaps post-consumer materials are used in a product. It's often things like the resin of the backplate of a display or similar. That's wonderful, but does that affect the recyclability of the product then because of that choice that they've made? And maybe it's about considering how important that is to you. Don't forget, if you have no intention of disposing of your product responsibly, then it may as well not be recyclable if it's going to end up in landfill anyway. What was the point in that? So perhaps then the post-consumer materials is the way that you would go. But I think we're definitely seeing now people being far more interested in what's going to happen to their products at the end of their life. Now, if you're working in digital signage and you're not using the inbuilt compute on the displays, so the inbuilt media players or system on chip, WebOS, whatever you want to call them, there are many flavors. There is something else that you can do. When you need a signage player, and I see this quite a lot, you can quite often perhaps be swayed towards using a PC, a small form factor PC. An Intel NUC, perhaps what are the little Apple, the mini PCs from Apple? They've gone out of fashion now, but they did like a mini Apple PC for a while, and that became really popular as well for signage.
Mini.
Yeah, the Mac Mini.
I have one. Wait a minute. I have one. It's a Mac Mini, correct?
So here's a few facts about those form factor PCs versus, and I've based this on my favorite, a BrightSign digital signage player. So typical consumption of a form factor PC, 60 to 80 watts. BrightSign player, 10 to 15. It's quite a big jump. Signage players like BrightSign, they self-heal. They can self-heal. There's very, very little need for site visits. thus the overall carbon footprint also reduces. Average life of a small PC, 3 years. Just get on to a couple of topics here. So bright sign players, significantly longer life expectancy, 6 to 8 more likely. And one to throw out, if anyone did visit the Sharp booth on at ISE, they had a display that they had, I think, borrowed, or perhaps they'd replaced or issued a new display in exchange for them lending it to them. But they'd taken a display from Vienna Airport that had been running for something like 20 years, and they installed it on their booth to show it as a demonstration of the capability of their product and how the life expectancy or life cycle of that product was so long. And this is something to consider. We're talking about commercial grade product here, which is designed for the longer use and to run for longer life. And finally, a purpose-built digital signage player is likely to have a slim operating system. So it's not overworking unnecessarily. It also means that it's probably going to help it have a longer life. There's so many benefits. So that's the other area that I would want people to consider. And the final area of the checklist for me is going to be covered a little bit in the video that we show shortly. What is the most sustainable choice of technology to use for your project? Now, a long time ago, we used to talk so much about printed media, meaning there were lots of physical materials. Every time you wanted to change anything, you needed to print something else, or it was like the fabric, on the billboards, etc. People would have to be deployed to go out and change them. So there was a really strong case to shift to digital, partly in the name of sustainability. And since then, we've seen energy consumption and so on come down. Ambient light sensors have been introduced so that can be changed dynamically, so we're not using more energy than we need to. But we can go one step further now. If printed media was right for you the first time around, and you moved over to digital, or you're considering digital now to stop that constant churn of physical materials, it's probably quite likely that you're not going to be showing video. And if you're not showing video and your content doesn't need to change regularly, which if you're moving from printed, it probably doesn't, then e-ink, that's the way forward for you. So I think it is a really interesting technology. We don't see enough of it in use yet. We've got options of up to 55-inch now, bigger for outdoor display. Some of those come with solar battery packs, etc., so that you can really be power free. And the beauty of the e-paper technology is that you're only using power when you change the content. And so if it is static content, if you are moving from printed, I really hope that we start to see this pivot now through e-paper technologies, and rather than straight to the digital. So a couple of final ones. White content on direct view LED walls. Don't do it, please. There's no need. Number one, it blinds people. It gives you a headache. It has no business. White has no business on a big LED screen. We've implemented at Midwich now slide decks for projection or LCD display, and then an LED ready slide deck, which it's not quite black, but it's like a dark gray background. This helps lots. There's lots of content choices that you can make. If you really want to be sustainable, have more static content on your LCD rather than animations, consider e-paper and e-ink. There's so many things that you can consider. And the other is making sure that they do get powered off. Standby is okay. It's a step in the right direction. Full power off, that's what we're really aiming for. And these days, products are pretty reliable. When you power them back up, it's probably going to be fine. They're not part of a huge system anymore like they used to be. Does it need to run 24/7? If your shop is closed, should your signage be on? And there are some cases where it should, right? There's plenty of people walking past and it's part of the ad stream. But there's also a lot of technology out there now that can tell us that. Is it necessary for you to keep that on? do people stop and look at it at certain times? If it's ineffective, let's get it off. Let's not pollute if we don't need to. In fact, some years ago, so this was, I think, a 2020 study, so potentially quite out of date now with the evolution of display technology, but there was a study put out by a manufacturer, and they calculated that 80% of the carbon emissions of a display come from the usage. So not from the materials that have been used to make it, not from the shipping, if it's come from China or Taiwan, Korea, wherever it is. But in fact, from the moment it's switched on at the end user's site and how they then use it and monitor it, the biggest chunk of the emissions is there. So it does put the onus back on the user to say they have a part to play, and it moves beyond product choice and into their own management choices, content choices, and that they're in control as well. So, Chris, before we play this video,
Sure.
how different is it in the US? How important is this to people where you are?
Now, I didn't come prepared with the facts and figures. So I'm going to go by what I do on Sundays.
Yeah.
And that is my weekly chats of AV and AM. And I can only go by what people have basically said. And these are industry folks that are in the space. Sustainability becomes a question mark. I've had people directly say, without naming names, that if it's between X or Y and one makes product more green than the other, great. But if I'm gonna have to pay extra for that green, then I'm not gonna push for that. Where you start seeing it more in play is when consultants start adding that into the spec.
Yeah.
So now you have a directive, and if you want to see sustainability, then the consultant puts it into the spec that it needs to be X, or it needs to do this, or that manufacturers need to have a power consumption of this. You see this in rollouts and even in the non-digital signage space, right? Where you're doing rollouts of conference rooms, for example, and in-house corporate is going to want to see a reduction. Everything from touch panels to displays. How can we save on energy? How much power does one use over the other? I mean, amplifiers draw power, and these are products that are constantly on and doing their things. There's always been discussion in AV regarding smart buildings, and God, we have messed that conversation up so many times. We, meaning the industry, where yes, it was a hot topic many years ago, then it kind of fell off. And then now with AI and conversations about sustainability, things now can happen because the building can be for lack of a better term, a living, breathing entity, right?
Yeah.
So now as you deploy systems across a campus or a network, you're now seeing a heartbeat of how that system is being used. So I think that the sustainability thing, even 3 years ago was not, or 4 years ago was not a conversation topic, because people were just like, I just need product. Please, you just get me something and then we'll worry about it. I think that's starting to creep into the conversation now, because obviously energy is an issue. Environmental is an issue. We've done a lot, whatever your political views are. We've done a lot against the environment that we could actually maybe help and bring some of that back. But those initiatives really have to be, driven by us or by our end users. If our clients are starting to demand it, then obviously the AV integration world is going to start asking for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question about,
It does. And I think if consultants are specifying it on tenders, that's usually come from the end user, right? That it's something that's important to their business and to be included in the spec, because they work independently for their end users. It's interesting what you said about 3 years ago or longer and so on. I have a view on this. Energy pricing in Europe was affected some years ago, and we saw these huge price rises that the US didn't see. And I think our sense of urgency was propelled by that. That's not to say that the uh, green activists were any less strong then than they are now, or vice versa. I actually think it was the support of big business. And when it was hurting their pockets, it was on really, really high on the agenda. And maybe now that energy costs haven't really significantly gone down in Europe. We've just gotten used to them, and they're about to go up. Well, they have already soared up again with recent events. But actually, the more recent events affect much wider span of the world. So it would be interesting to see if this climbs again on people's agenda because of the overall cost. Now, we've had a comment from James Forsyth, who's added to the checklist. Use sensors to trigger content when people are there to save on power when they are not. Yes. And actually, thank you, James. You have just started something. So we're going to now play the interview that was held at ISE with Laila and Martin, who will offer some insight and extreme passion on this topic. And whilst we're doing that, if anyone does want to add to that checklist, please do. You can do it in the comments or messages directly, and then we can add to those at the end if we've got any to shout out.
I can actually add a little known one that nobody is aware of, or that maybe they are aware of but they're not familiar with. But in the US, we have a dark skies initiative. So when you start talking about your outside digital signage and displays and cities in general, there is a dark sky initiative, which is part of light. Basically to control light pollution in general. And if you look that up, go to your wikis and stuff like that, folks, and check out what the dark skies initiatives are. You can purchase, for example, and it's really on the consumer end, for example, is where I've actually first discovered it. When you put outdoor lighting in your house, if you buy certain angled down lighting so that it's not sending up into the air, then actually it would allow for some of the things. Believe it or not, it's the astronomy community, community that's
and
pushing
wildlife,
for
I'd imagine.
Yes, and wildlife. So there's a lot of different things. What's wild is actually recently I just read something where when the Luxor in Vegas first came out, the beam that they used to shoot into the sky changed the ecosystem because it attracted all different sorts of moths and insects that they were not prepared for. And there was basically a beacon where they were bringing in all these things, which brought in other birds and other things. Bats returned because now there were bugs in the sky. And you don't think of this stuff, but it is all part of a chain reaction. So check out what dark sky initiatives are and see how that can come into play as well. Light pollution is a thing.
So if you have any more to add, we'd love to add them to our checklist, and I'll start typing it up so that we can maybe issue that out of a nice digital signage checklist when you're designing your system, what could be implemented or what could be considered to make your estate more sustainable. So the best thing to do is turn it over to the experts. And me, I was the interviewer in this. So I'm an honorary expert for today. So really grateful that Sharp and Laila were able to support us in this educational piece. And producer Kerry is going to play that interview now. So we are at ISE 2026. We are on the show floor, although we've got a quiet room, and we're talking about sustainable signage. And I've asked two experts to join me today to help us with this topic. So could you please both introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Martin. I'm product manager for Sharp Display Solutions for Europe. Responsible for the whole LCD display business for Europe. That's including e-paper technology, which we will be talking about today. And sustainability is one of the main topics that drives how we create products. We really do want to make a change. My personal motto is be part of the change that you want to see in the world. And if we don't start as a manufacturer, then who else should do that for us?
Yeah, what a great intro. I am Laila Hede Jensen. I work as a business consultant and have been in the industry for about 20 years. I know as a lady we say 15 plus, but you know, been around for a bit. So I've seen how the industry has grown up. And I work in M&A, so I advise investors in support on acquiring companies. And for them, it's important, and thank goodness that they're putting into the agenda that it's now coming, because we need to influence as much as we can from all sides. And that's a great lever for that point. So thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for joining me. So I haven't got round much of the show floor yet, but my first observation is if we go back to the second ISE here at Barcelona, we saw a lot actually of representation when it came to sustainability messaging, circular economy, how people had reduced the power consumption of their products. It was everywhere. It was a real buzz. I worry that there's a little fatigue on this topic because it doesn't feel as well represented out there, and yet there are still some great stories to tell. So I wonder what sustainable signage means to you. And we'll start with you, Laila, because you see it right from every aspect of the channel, users right the way through to the manufacturers. What do you think it really means now?
It means to take something serious. Because like we talked about the fatigue, and I think it's because it's not being pushed as an agenda. It's just a topic that we think is interesting to talk about, instead of actually driving it from the top down. And when it comes to signage, signage is not just the software, it's not just the hardware, but it's also the content. And there are so many aspects we can do to prevent from using too much power and so forth. So from that side, we should have a responsibility. And I often say when it comes to sustainability, which is close to my heart, just do it. It's the Nike slogan. Because it's for the greater good.
It is for the greater good. Do you think that people know how to get started?
No, I think that's the issue. We talk about so many different things, but there's not a top 5. But I think we talked about this before, but the top one should just do it in your day-to-day life. Just implement the small things in the offices, you know. Just start and then have the conversation about being much more sustainable in the long run. But it has to start from the executive level. It has to be policies. We know that in Europe, and I have to compare as we are in a global world, that Europe is the forefront. We talk about it. We have the ESG, we have the CSRD, we have all the rules and regulations. And it's not a matter of just getting started. It will be a starting point. You don't have to measure towards anybody else. Measure towards your own results.
Yeah.
So start measuring just a couple of bits, and then see how you progress, and then have it as a KPI in all the departments, from the top to the bottom of the organization. Because often when a KPI, it's measurable. Everything in sustainability is measurable, so we can make a difference. And it should be part of every company's DNA, because I want to do something better for the world. Now, we talk about products and how you produce the products, and I really admire that, because that should be the first thing you think. But then when we come to the US, it's not on the agenda, and I have to force it every time I have a conversation. What's your policy? And they're like, what are you talking about, sustainability? I'll leave it to someone else. But then who's going to change the world? Who's going to make it better for us? Who's going to start it, right? We all have, it's our duty to do it. And it can be in all different levels and all different tasks that we have.
I think it's interesting with Europe because actually the regulations that are in place now are forcing some elements of change that affect us all globally. So we're not going to see a sustainable SKU of one product and an unsustainable SKU for rest of world. So naturally the changes in manufacturing and packaging and similar, that probably does roll out across the globe, which is good for us. But I think the CSRD has really helped in terms of everybody measuring their operational carbon footprint. They now have a baseline, they know how to improve. But actually it's quite difficult to show the benefits, for example, then in your CSRD, of working with products like yours that are built with circular economy in mind, because it's harder to score well on your CSRD by making that purchasing decision. There isn't really a way to offset that, to my knowledge, in that report. So,
you've been doing this for a long time. I think the sort of sharp NEC movement was long before the hype around sustainability. So you're the perfect guest here for this show. Just run through for our listeners who maybe don't know as much about the Sharp LCD range. What's special?
So it's, as you said, it starts at the very beginning of the creation, the design, the thinking of what our market needs as an AV solution. So I'm responsible for LCD, but this starts not only with my product category, but with all of the thinking, how we approach what type of solution we do want to push and want to design. And as Laila, as you said, this should be in every company's DNA. And this starts within our design team here in Europe, but always aligning with our peers in US. ISE and many of these events and many of the projects becoming more and more a sort of global standard approach. This same thing is what we have been doing for over a decade, consulting with customers on a global scale, creating product SKUs and the right solution on a global scale. We align with our peers, with my peer from the US for my product category, and we do know, as you said, Europe is the first one, always taking the step, always asking for one more, and we do see that this whole product creation process, if you lead it this way, and if the push really comes from that side, then it makes a product much more complex, but much more efficient in the end. Yes, the cost benefit is something that is the other end. You say top down within a company. I would say left or right within the whole product to end user chain. If you take us as a manufacturer, we design, I push for sustainable packaging of the products. We have partners that we select based on their credo. We have projects that we coach into using the right technology. It's not only the product itself, but also with that product range that we create, knowing that a project can be solved in 7 different ways. Which product is actually the right one? Which technology consumes less power? And if we take this to the very, I would say, the left end of this chain, there is one thing that eventually on the long shot we need to change, which is the other end, that is the end user. How do you qualify this? Anyone wants to have a bright LED on the street. Well, I tell you, what are you showing on this LED? Is it a static image? Then that's the wrong technology. I've been asked like, I want to have this technology for my solution. And I might be saying, no, that's the wrong one. I would not go for that one. Even knowing that I would have a greater sell with that technology that he was requesting. It's not only about the business, it's about creating the full chain of awareness and not just focus on sustainability.
And the mindset. Because everything you're saying about the mindsets. Yes. Sustainability is mindset and a process. But it's also about the use case. Of course, you're absolutely right. But we have to educate them. Because we understand, and for me, sometimes when I have a conversation about sustainability, I think, oh my goodness, you're so uneducated. But of course, we're on different levels.
Absolutely.
And it's our job to get them to our level, which is, of course, is what we need to do.
Absolutely. And that with
the end users,
yeah,
it's so important that they have it as mandatory in the RFPs, in their conversations.
Correct.
You have to, their vendors has to have a policy. Yes, on sustainability, absolutely. Just as a standard, all the transportation, just the small little things can work. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't come from the one who actually, I think it's probably going to say this wrong, but controls the project, because they do. It's their money, they're the client, they're absolutely. Always right. Yeah. So if they say it, mm-hmm. then the mindset will drop down to all the other levels that there are. Or at least that's where I think we can make a change.
Absolutely.
Right?
Consultants, platform, replication. You say the mindset. Our problem is technology advances much faster than us as humans adapting to the processes, the differences in technology. We haven't even finished digesting the technology before we're already launching the new one, the next one. Go higher, go lower, go brighter. Well, where in all that are we as manufacturers, as project leaders, as end users, trying to make a balance out of finding the right way? There is even consultants are somewhere on the spot when they want to win the project. They are in for the business. It's not just fun. Yeah, a project can lead to fun. They're in for the business. Well, yes, but that's where we need to tackle it. Coaching them what our credo is from both sides. A manufacturer creating a product maybe costs $1 more, but it's a product that is longer lasting. So there is really a lot that we can still do in education and awareness, in how we word even our marketing team, putting emphasis in everyone around the AV industry. A lot of highlights. And you said this fatigue, you mentioned this happened a lot. 2022, 23, words, excitement. And then what? Did someone implement that?
But it's typical. You're missing the execution.
Exactly.
It's typically, we don't want to go into the strategic work, but that's it. You do a plan, looks great. Where's the execution? You always have the execution. You're missing it.
I think there's some legislation at play there as well. So there's a regulations coming in the EU around green marketing. So this is going to prevent people from using the terms green, environmentally friendly, etc., sustainable, without being able to back that up. And I believe by a third party as well, so you can't sort of mark your own homework. Yes, and that's great. And I wonder if perhaps some of the marketing quietened down in lieu of those companies going off and finding that certification so that they can proudly state it further down the line. We sort of touched on power briefly there, and I think that is quite an interesting one. So a long time ago, when we were more projection-led than we were display-led, I recall whenever I took a classroom projector or a business projector out of a box, it fired up in eco mode. So its default was to work at its more sustainable, eco-friendly setting, and I needed to manually up that brightness if I required it. Does signage work the same for us? And can we do something similar? And how are we going to get that message across to people to make sure they're not using more power and energy than they need to?
It's the tiny things that we have been preaching for, I would say, almost a decade or more. Mm-hmm. Eco sensors, the brightness
ambient light sensors,
ambient light sensors, emotion and human presence sensors. We do have them, and we showcase them every year again, and we do promote them. It's the small things like, how do you push your display out of the box to a customer? What's the preset? Many of them install and don't even touch. So yes, this eco mode is still something that is in, and it's regulated. You are not allowed to do whatever you want out of the box, but it's the mindset of the people. You wouldn't believe how many times I talk about these things, and people who are knowledged and supposedly knowledged about these things ask you like, oh, what's that? And you say like, hey, but we talked about this many times and in the projects, and we position it. So we do have a lot of tools that we built in our technology, rethinking how can we still optimize. This year we even did some changes, optimizing so that not everyone gets everything right from out of the box, not wasting, adding technology to that, and in LED technology, even reducing the brightness, reducing the power consumption by changing certain things on the technologies. I mean, this is in the core of our credo and how we create this technology. So yes, power consumption is one, but there's a second part, because this is purely technological. The second one, going back to what we insisted on earlier, is, well, pitching that and coaching customers and partners to use the right technology, not just because you have that available.
Understanding it. So when it comes to digital signage, then the whole ecosystem is not just about the software and the hardware and all of that, but it's understanding the purpose and what do you want to achieve.
Yes,
and
mindset.
Often we measure things, and often it's sales or it's footfall or whatever we want to. And content is quite important, but understanding just small little things like having the timer so that it drops when you're measuring the footfall anyway. So if the footfall drops, just turn it down or shut it off if there's no people. So all these sensors has a lot to do, but people often don't want to invest in the sensors because they think it's a lot of money. But then again, when do you choose when it's sustainable and when it's not? So they just got to be educated about it. But you can save 40% by syncing the measurement you're already making with your control of your software or the ecosystem that you have. And it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Because you have everything in place anyways. And it's about thinking those small little places. And also the content can do a lot.
Yes.
Obviously. But it's the hidden energy drains that we have to find and then elaborate on and especially on digital signage ecosystems.
And what about full power downs? How willing are customers now, our estates, to fully power down
But it's
their
difficult.
signage when they're shut, I guess, when they're closed? Because I walk past many store windows and it's very late, they're not open,
Okay. Yeah.
and it's still on, and I understand it is an advertising opportunity still. So it is difficult, but do you find that users are comfortable fully powering down equipment, or are they hoping to run it 24/7 in a more sustainable way?
You can go both ways. So there's one thing we have to understand. It is a revenue stream for the customer and the client. And that's okay. You can do it more sustainable. So it's fair enough because you can have the screen in lower brightness. It doesn't have to be bright. If you use the tricks that we talked about earlier with the content, having it less, then you have less power, it's always a good thing because every retail square meter space is important. You can sell it. So the customer doesn't want to shut off the screen completely, but you can be wise about the content you screen, you send, you publish at the time, and that's the part you have to consider, I think.
Yeah, and there are built-in mechanisms to protect and even reduce brightness, as I said. But there's another thing: creating a solution that is robust enough. Again, from the mindset of creation to the implementation, what we find is the biggest problem to many is the fear of, if I do a full shutdown, what will happen in the morning?
With the hardware,
with the software integration, with everything.
This comes from old school, lady.
I know.
it's the same
But it's
thing. It's a
stuck.
bit old-fashioned.
It
We've got
has
everything under
stuck.
control.
But I think, and I do understand it in a complex boardroom with a control system in the center, and the risk that something powers off in the state that it wasn't recognized as being in, and that so causes you all these problems. But in a world of typically player cloud display,
Super easy.
there's not a lot that can go wrong, is there?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Absolutely agree. So, and that's the thing. It comes from an age where you did have less handshakes between technologies. We work closely with partners exactly about these topics. We focus on finding who's right and how we can improve these things. With that on focus. So, I really I enjoy living this in an era where technology can drive the change.
Especially on the software side.
Absolutely.
I know that's my area of expertise, but in QSR, which is quick service restaurants, some of the softwares you can sync or link with your POS system. So you understand what sells at a certain point of time, and then you can push the advertisement so you sell more of the things that is running out of date. Because we also need to think about sustainability is not just about the hardware and the power and everything else, it's also about food waste.
Everything you do.
So this is just another level. So understanding how I connect to systems at the back that's already tracking. And then the food waste, when something is running out of date, publish it up so that you want 2 for 1, or you get a special discount at this time of hour, and then you get rid of that. Then we're saving another bit on that. Yes. And that's the beauty of digital signage, or at least some of it.
It's very interesting, actually. There's a audio brand here this week who are working with a streaming provider, like a Spotify for business. They're called QSIC, and actually they're doing all of this in their audio streaming software, very similar, so it can listen to the ambient noise levels and adjust the volume. Now, it's not going to give us the same level of gains that we will in terms of, but it's exactly what you're talking about with footfall and when to show that content, etc. And they're the same. They can add in, they do text to speech advertising to get rid of stock products that they need to, or put a special offer on that. So it can all tie into this bigger message. I think what I would like to touch on, though, is what the user can maybe do to help in terms of their content choices. So if they're starting their advertising or signage and content journey, and they want to make sustainable choices, what can they do in terms of content? Or should they be choosing the content that is right for them and then selecting the technology that makes that sustainable? What's the right way round?
Oh, half, I would say.
Oh, I'm the latter. Okay, you go first, and then I'll elaborate.
I like both approaches. So, basic example, whenever we create presentations, and in-house, outbound, we use different technologies as a manufacturer, LCD or LED. Now, we always go and make bright presentations, have it all on their colors, corporate identity, and there you go. The Martin, but for LED, says, no, for LED, do black content, do black background. LEDs are all off.
I mean, let's just take
And
sustainability out of this. White content on LED is blinding and gives you a headache
exactly,
as well.
and that's the point. It kills.
Shouldn't be allowed. But
I
you have
agree.
to. So when we talk about content in digital signage, content is something that the client does to get you, I'm sorry I'm going to say this, but to manipulate you to do a certain action. So I'm not thinking about presentations or anything else or
I know, but it
because
was
you
an
shouldn't do
example.
that on an Excel. Sorry, you shouldn't do that on an LED screen. But when the content comes in, I will spend a lot of money on creating the content, and the content is built exactly for the audience that's looking at it. So
Fit the technology to it.
Exactly,
Yes.
that's why, because the content has to have the effect on the audience, otherwise it's just a poster and it's a waste of money. And in digital signage, it's about getting the audience to behave in the way we want. Go buy more, or I need you to stop and take the content in. So the content is the beauty of digital signage, because it can make sure you achieve your purpose, to be honest. And I come from the manufacturer world, but understanding the creative part of how much I can manipulate someone else with a content, just a video in front of you. I've got you in my hands. The same with music, which is really interesting. We just said that earlier. It can get you in a different state of mind. And it's
emotive.
magic.
Yeah.
And it's emotional, and more content has to be emotional. It has to talk to me, and not the masses. If it talks to the masses, it just blends in and becomes a white noise.
Yeah.
And Gen Z it's going to be our workforce, and it's the biggest. They're going to be our biggest end users as well. They're going to be our consumers, and they are sustainable. So I'm such a fan of that part of the generation, because they demand now from companies, you need to have a sustainability process. That's the policy. That's the first thing they're going to ask when they get hired. If you don't have the policies, then you're not going to attract the talents.
Exactly.
And they will buy with sustainability in mind.
But provable processes behind it.
Correct.
And for this, from technology perspective, yes, I fully agree. That speaks to them, and music, senses, all this gets to you. But what is also changing is applying the right technology. Visually loud, that attracts you, that turns your head, that gets you one step closer. The thing is, if you then want that step, that emotion, to be converted into, oh, now I need the information, but what do I, that's where you eventually change technology and have something, and you see this, many shops combine flashy and loud with information. I always say, 2 examples, a display attracts you, it's visually loud, attraction. Then you have maybe something next to it, static, that is calm, that informs you, that might get you that answers, because
Different
that
purpose.
exactly,
Correct.
and that same generation, they come closer, they take the step, but then they want the information, they don't walk by. If they did that, then they want to get something out of it, and that's the way you can bring them and manipulating to that, but then actually getting your message across, which carries more than just the flashy visually loud. So
I'm going to elevate that.
Yeah.
So I want to take it earlier in the cycle, because we
Yes.
always have the customer journey wherever
Yeah.
it starts, and the younger generation starts on the mobile phone. The
there you go,
omni-channel
yes.
is of the essence. So I need to, use the right platform and the right channels for the audience that I have, and the youngsters are always on their phone. But we also need to change the content so that it actually appeals to them. So that's why what you said before, it's so important what device we have. It has to work, otherwise it's just white noise. So you're absolutely right, but we also have to hit,
And then
Yeah,
we're
the
draining
combination.
power and resources for no reason. That's
Yes,
the thing, isn't
correct.
it? That is
Yeah.
wasted,
Yeah.
and there's no need for it. We talked about provable, and I think you guys have a stat. Is it 90-something% of the materials are recyclable in your LCD range? Just very quickly, there's a lot of hype in the hardware world about the use of post-consumer materials. But I've found that sometimes that renders the product to not be recyclable. So just on your side with Sharp, you have the product, that is almost entirely recyclable, so it's a great sustainable buying choice. And you've also taken that one step further, and I believe you're now offering people extended warranties if we
Second
can, you
life.
can, yes. Could you just briefly tell our listeners about that?
Yes, absolutely. So two things. First one is the full circle round in sustainability, but also bringing it one notch up. Second life, this what you just referred to, is being so sure that my technology is sustainable but long-lasting from design, from production, that we enable partners to go ahead and have a second step forward the cell, the equipment that they might want to change earlier on, but with the full set of warranties that we provide in the first place. And this is because we do believe and show that we not only speak about it, but we act on it. There is a thing where they always speak about the carbon footprint in it. So if you have a device produced in Asia and then you fly it in because the project was urgent and somebody screwed up planning, well, carbon footprint and sustainability goes down the drain. If you have a longer route and the ship has to go through South Africa, carbon footprint changes. So sustainability is also being able to create this whole process in an efficient way. That means if you do the whole traceability of it, it's not only speaking about it, it's proving it, as you said, and then showing it with the trust in your own products. We give a second life, of course we do, but we also calculate and we enable companies who want to do this and do the math within their scope of we are a green company buying green products. Yeah, for sure.
You're rewarding good behavior.
And proving it. This
Yes.
is actually our footprint based on this and this and this. Facts, not just the nice message.
And how often do we ask our clients, what's your end-of-life strategy?
We do, yes.
Yes,
It's
I'm sure you do.
crazy. It's
But the thing is
crazy.
also...
Nobody has it. Nobody.
That's
We
it.
offered it. We offer buybacks for many years.
What
Projectors,
about
displays.
donation? Because one of the things I really like is that
Universities.
it should be mandatory that you donate to universities.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
others, because then it's the full circle.
Yes.
Instead of just, I know you have to get rid of it in a certain way, and I appreciate that.
But
the
use the product
donation,
until
and
it's
then-
dead at
Exactly.
least. At least get it
And
to
then
the
just,
end of its
instead
life.
of 4 to 5 years, can we just say the lifetime is, I don't know if I'm doing something contradictionary, that's your place, but it's just 3 years,
Feel
and then
free.
someone else has 2 years.
Yes.
And I think that's, give it life somewhere else.
Yes.
For someone else who needs it and can't afford it.
So we already did some of these approaches, especially for products going end of life, something that is eventually not even being sold out because new generation, newer features, higher and speed up projects, and we have 2 or 3 things that are left over in our stock. And what do? We pick and we see where can we make the difference? I don't like scrapping, and I avoid it every single time. I approach people and say, look, you have a project, you have a partner, you have a university, wherever, but use it in a smart way, being conscious of the difference that you actually make with that decision.
And it's the mindset.
Yes.
Because there's
again.
so many people, instead of repairing and reusing, just throw it
Scrap
out.
and buy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's the mindset that it comes back to.
Yeah.
So we have just 2 more minutes before we get kicked out for the next people. And I wanted to finish on a final question to both of you. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I might be wrong. So far, and I know it's day 1, so it's not really very fair, a great example or a new technology or something to tell our listeners, something groundbreaking in this area for sustainability and signage. It can be a piece of guidance or an interesting piece of technology that you've seen. I have a feeling, Martin, you're going to talk about e-paper.
I was about to jump in with that. It's one of the things where I said, choose the right technology for purpose.
Okay.
I always have a saying where there are 7 different ways of doing something, a project, a flashy wall. Well, sometimes you end up using an LCD display full on for a static information display. Choose the right technology, and that might be e-paper. That might be changing larger surfaces. We're getting there to cover larger surfaces with a fraction of the energy that you consume for a large LED wall.
Right, we'll make sure that our viewers and listeners get access to
Absolutely.
have a little look at the details on your e-paper. And
Thank you
Laila,
very
from
much.
you, advice to the industry, to any of those channel partners about how to start their sustainability journey.
Just do it. It's very short and efficient. just start wherever you can and just think about your day-to-day life and think it into the process you have. Even if it's vendors, if it's end users, if it's manufacturers, put it on the agenda and make sure that it comes on the executive level so it's actually going to get executed, exclamation mark, because we need to well, small thing matters, anything matters, but it's actually doing it. Let's stop being lazy and let's put it on the agenda and,
End of story.
go big or go home.
Stop being lazy.
There you go. I like that.
Thank you both for joining me. This will go out as part of our Midwich Live or Midwich On Air stream later in the month with some nice B-roll and examples of the products that we've spoken about. So thanks for being here, guys.
I need to remember that when I'm recording stuff that we know we're going to play on one of these, I don't need to explain that it's going to be played on one of these because I'm
It's okay.
very
It's okay. It's all right. You're just going through the motions. It's fine. Very interesting piece you did there. Excellent. Bringing in the experts make a difference. I know we've had some comments on our live stream as well, including some folks talking about our technical issues. We've had some glitches, and it could be just on the LinkedIn side because I'm hearing YouTube was streaming properly.
Yeah.
We did not, just don't want to let the people that are watching kind of not answer to that sort of stuff. But I'm sure producer Carrie will bring up some of the comments that we have in the chats across our social platforms. What'd you think, Jenny? Tell me about that.
It's such an interesting topic, and actually, I suppose it's quite good to live where I live because so much of it is being outlined in front of us. The rules around it. There's we have a WEEE compliant. It's WEEE compliant waste disposal kind of regime that we have to follow. I suppose what's missing in the UK at the moment is a number of options in terms of recycling programs and take back programs. So we have the Together for Cinema initiative. This is something that Save do in the US. They're quite good at matching older product with people who want pre-loved product or used product with initiatives that could use it. And I suppose here I should give a quick shout out to our French colleagues, as they've been running a program now for, I think, circa a year called Reconnect. And with Reconnect, what they do is they go and collect at our cost from end users displays that they're finished with, displays that they're upgrading. And we've partnered with a refurbishment service company who will refurbish those units as best as they can and then give us I suppose an indication or life expectancy of that product. That's then priced accordingly and available to that market as a pre-loved item. This is something that's a pilot in France, and if it's feasible and viable, we would look to roll that out in other areas. So I think I'd love to see more of that. Not just from Midwich, from everywhere, just places where these things can go. I think the difficulty sometimes for channel is reaching the end user to get them to come back. We do this with Piesco, with the mostly with rental. It's called Nearly New AV. So we make available for sale significantly lower cost than its brand new counterparts. And in like mobile phones, this is a thing, right? Lots of people purchase phones that people have changed their mind about or refurbished phones. So I got a funny DM during that. So obviously we said, is there anything you'd like to add to our checklist? My assumption, the reason this person decided to DM me and not put it in the comments is that they work for a mount manufacturer, and this might be seen as them being bad for business. But they did suggest when you're choosing your mount, if you're opting for a universal mount, and also if you're opting for typically displays, when you replace them, you go bigger. So if you fit in that category where you can be in the small universal wall mount or the medium or large universal wall mount, lean towards the larger one. because it's universal, it's highly likely to be able to be reused when you swap out the display. And if you size up, it's most likely still going to be able to take it. As I say, I don't think they wanted potential fallout from someone going, what are you doing? We need to be able to sell more mounts. But I thought that was quite a simple, semi-obvious and useful one to add into there. So yeah, super interesting conversation had at ISE. And I was there, but I found that really interesting to rewatch. And congratulations to Sharp for all they've achieved. They are a manufacturer who achieves in all areas of sustainability through their own operational carbon footprint and commitment, how they're designing their products in terms of power and usage and long life, how they make sure those are recyclable, and also the fact that they're now going one step further with these additional warranties and a way to get your hands on pre-used kit. And of course, that fantastic demonstration of the 20-year-old display that is still going, still running, and was running the Vienna airport content at the show. And hi, Patty, and everyone that's watching. Thanks so much for commenting. Now, Chris,
but can I add to the one of the things that was a challenge many years ago, which is less of a challenge today. Educate clients on power saving and conditioning and stuff like that. If the brand that you prefer or that's chosen or that's specified is not doing the sustainability, adding a piece of gear such as a Surgex, for example, that is connected back to something bigger where you can monitor and watch power consumption will help you get there, right? Yes, you do have to put a plug behind a screen, but if your screen isn't doing what you want it to do as far as sustainability, you have this ability by adding on like a product like the Squid that Surgex makes to help with power management and control. And again, timing, shutting it off, the things that it can do today. And I understand old school AV. I know because I am old school AV. What am I talking about? Projectors that would not turn on because you would, tell them, yes, turn on at 8 o'clock and it wouldn't turn on. And then it's a campus wide thing. Now you can look into them. We have systems, we have managed services out there that will make sure that things will turn on. This is the advantage to companies like a NetSpeak, right? And to things that we have going on today in control companies that are looking ahead into how are we going to run a more sustainable thing, because control is not exactly the hottest topic in a control room where in a conference room like it used to be. Now it's looked on as I need to turn the projector on and off, and how do I do this simply? It used to be about simplifying, but now that component can add to the whole sustainability conversation as well. And speaking as somebody who ran campuses for 13 years on site, what we can reuse and stuff was good, but we also have to take a look at how much power draw is that keeping that old amplifier. Yes, it's great. It's a one-time buy. You kind of just, you keep on chugging with this 100-watt amp, but do you really need that? Or can we go to something that's more efficient now, runs cooler, less fans, and needs less cooling, right, in a space, or not making the room hotter, which is in turn making you having to run the AC in that space a little bit more, things like that, things to consider. Again, when it comes to sustainability, talk to the folks on the engineering side. There is going to be some cool and key features of devices that are not necessarily put out there because they're not the most sexiest things, right? Especially when you talk about system design, everybody wants to talk about the big wow, right? You want a big monitor, big speakers, big sound, awesome. Some of the cool features in the background when it comes to sustainability is a little feature set that's really in a spec sheet that you should really be looking at. And that's what I would ask people.
It might be good enough for you, that eco mode that I recall from the days of projectors, because that's how they powered up. The option wasn't there to see it at its brightest, best performance instantly. I think probably because they were so commonly used in education and they cared more about the lamp life. But let's go back to that. Unfortunately, the onus now is on the integrator and the user. Just check, is there an eco mode? You can do this at home. Is there a way I could run this more efficiently? Can I switch on some sort of dynamic light sensor on this product so it's not working harder than it needs to? Wander around, make sure you switch stuff off and so on. And the actually biggest one for me to add as a final note, upgrades and maintenance. Firmware upgrades will prolong the life and efficiency of your product. If you keep it up to date, then you get all of those benefits that these tech companies are trying to push out to you. So I think that's a really important one. And sometimes poor performing products get swapped out unnecessarily, and it's just because it wasn't maintained.
Here is another one of my weird debates from back in the day that could still happen today. Buying products that would run on, I'm going to buy this, but run it on eco. So you're buying in projectors where the commonly used. I'm buying a 20,000 lumen projector. I'm going to run that in eco mode. Well, do you want to run a 20,000 lumen projector on eco mode, or do you just want to buy a 15,000 watt or 10,000 watt projector? That conversations really look down into that, because if you're going to buy, if you're getting a great deal on a 20,000 lumen projector, fine. Do that, run on an eco mode if it's the same value. But really, do you need that, right? And there's always a sweet spot, especially when it comes to projection and it comes to LED with the nits on that sort of stuff. Do you really
run the calculations?
The calculation is super important. I think that kind of gets lost in the conversation once it gets past that initial spec, right? Oh my God, this looks beautiful. Are you going to run that thing at super bright? Just pay attention to what you saw in a demo center is going to be high octane, meant to wow and really impress you. Now, where you put that LED wall, where you're going to put that projection, can it be, does it have to be running at 100 miles an hour, or can you dim it back? If so, scale properly, do your proper calculations, work with the engineers, and look at the space. Ambient lighting, sound, all that sort of stuff comes into play when it comes to sustainability. It is what we go to school for, folks. This is what we are good at. This is where our value is, more so than my God, the IT is just a transport, but don't tell that to IT. You know what I'm saying? This is where our science comes into play, and I love it. It makes me geek out. And yes, let's calculate what the best possible solution is for a space, using it properly, using science, not just gut instinct anymore. So
science,
sorry, my rant is over. It's done.
So we have a few minutes left, and I think we should probably use it just to make sure that we have updated folks this side of the pond and your side of the pond on where they can find Midwich peeps over the next month or two. So my first shout out is for an event we will host in Bracknell at Innovation House. That's this month. That's the 26th of March. If I've got that wrong, Kerry will shout at me in the chat now, and that hasn't happened, so I think it's okay. On the 26th of March. So that's Barca to Bracknell. This event actually has a selection of brands who released new products at ISE, and we have gathered a number of them together to exhibit at Innovation House and show those off, aimed at the people who weren't able to visit ISE. But of course, even if you were there, you are more than welcome to come and catch up with vendors and, of course, the Midwich crew. And then the second one for me is going to be Tech North. So this is our northern technology show, like Tech Expo, that we hold in September, October in Ascot. This is for our northern colleagues and channel partners. You can register now. So head to the midwich.com website if you need to reach any of these events. Also, we can pop the links to register in the comments. Tech North is Tuesday, the 21st of April, if you would like to join us there in Manchester. Where are you going to be with your friends, Chris?
I don't stop. This is not going to this is not going to be an easy one. I'm just going to straight out tell you. This week, I am in New York City. I will be at New York Build Expo, which is Builder Show. the audience and the people that are there, not necessarily an AV show. This is a building show. The people that go to this are consultants, facilities management, companies like CBRE, Richard Ellis, and JLL will be, walking through these things. And yes, you will see garage doors, windows, power consumption, solar. You see a little bit of everything. And yes, AV is sprinkled in because some AV companies are actually there. I am actually meeting with some of our consultant and partners out there this week. Next week, I am in Phoenix to go see our friends at AVI-SPL, who will be hosting a Vibe in Phoenix. Then this is all leading to, and we're about 30 days out roughly, of NAB, which is our big show for the broadcast side. That is April 18th through the 22nd. I will be there that week. If you guys would like to, if you're watching, if you're listening, and you would like to meet up, let me know. I'll be there for the week. Myself, Dan O'Donnell, our broadcast team will be there. I know some folks from the UK come over for the big show as well. I always run into Midwich folks from home base there. But those are our big shows. And obviously it's leading up to InfoComm in June. Jenny, I do have insider information that if folks are making plans now, like I do, I'm already booking into October. October 21st and 22nd. You may want to put that in a pencil in your in your dossier right now. That is technically right now the working dates for Tech Expo in the UK. So if you're watching, please scribble that into your book right now and put some time aside for the 21st of October and the 22nd of October. InfoComm is going to be big for us here in the US. Obviously, this is coming off the heels of a very successful ISE show. Now we have a show coming here, which is our Super Bowl, I guess would be it, because you guys have the World Cup and we have World Cup around that same time too. Whole lot of craziness going on. It won't stop. It doesn't stop. So folks, that is where you'll find Midwich. This is where we're consistently going. I just got back from South by Southwest in Austin with our friends at Logitech, who had me in for some podcast stuff. Very interesting show. That should be a topic for some other discussion. But definitely we can have a conversation regarding festival style conventions or shows versus traditional convention, and conference type setups. Very interesting setup there, but it was my first South by Southwest. I was, this year I've been to two. I've been to a South by Southwest and I've been to CES, and they both have given me interesting nuggets of information to come back and share with our events teams and stuff like that of what we can be looking at. And, we're always looking to innovate in terms of the show and where we are and our presence at these places. Sometimes, folks, you have to step out of our comfort zone, right? Being just in the AV space sometimes doesn't just give us a good picture. And this is coming from somebody who's been to a Comic-Con to see how audience engagement happens and have gone to these wild shows, not necessarily because Midwich has sent me, but some of these I do on my own. But yes, absolutely. I am looking at a very busy next 6 months, which is good. Busy is good, considering the way the world is kind of going right now. I'll take busy, keeps me distracted, keeps my mind off of what exactly is going on. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for our show. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Jenny, do you have any parting notes that you want to drop down?
Nope, just my thanks to Laila and Martin and Sharp, of course, for assisting us in pulling together that interview. I thought it was a really interesting discussion, and we wanted to make sure that we brought it to Midwich on Air for people to see here as well. And for anyone who did experience any glitches in the sharing of that video, we'll release just the interview on YouTube as well, so that there is a nice clean copy as we won't be able to check back just yet.
We'll have an addendum. We'll have a rider going on. Beside this, you'll have the interview that was done at ISE as well separately. So you'll have two pieces of content to take a look at, the show or the interview itself. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been our pleasure. We hope to come back with some more Midwich on Air content as soon as possible. But with our schedules, it's getting kind of wild. You tell us what you want to see. This is obviously a show that we have been putting together based on either user feedback or things that we find interesting, but we'd love to engage with you folks. And we appreciate the people that are watching, the people that watch live and that held in there through the little bit of glitches here and there. Unfortunately, we can't control what some of the services and streaming platforms are doing, but by the time it gets to the final resting place inside YouTube, we promise that it will be kind of cleaned up and be in a lot better shape. once again, thank you so much. My name's Chris Neto. I'm the head of emerging markets at Midwich US and the co-host of this fine show with Jenny Hicks, who is sitting on the other side of the pond in the UK. We appreciate everything you guys are doing. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the love. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Midwich on Air, and it was a special episode at that.